I'm going to call us to order. Let the record reflect that all members of the EC are present. I'm going to go ahead and quickly turn and see if we have any general manager, department manager comments. Hearing none, we'll continue forward to committee member comment. Yep, Patrick.
Sorry, I was on mute. I did one comment.
Okay.
Just a quick update on the Sun Street relocation. There'll be a full report at the board meeting, but we are making some progress. We were notified by Republic that they're going to be opening bids for the construction work next week and hopefully starting construction before the end of the month. So cross our fingers that that continues as it is. And we do have the stakeholder meeting tentatively set for March 31st and have reached out to the participating board members and other stakeholders. We'll be setting up another group meeting in the coming week or two. So hopefully that meeting will happen before the full board meeting, and we'll be able to do a complete report on the progress at that meeting. So that's all I have for tonight.
Great, thank you, Patrick. And we're heading into committee member comments. Any comments from members of the committee? See shaking heads. So we'll continue and head into public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to share comments regarding items not on today's agenda, but within the purview of this particular body. We do ask that folks use a raise hand function, *9 via landline in order to be recognized. I'll just note that nothing was received ahead of time for public comment this evening. But again, this is the opportunity to share public comment. Seeing no hands going up, we'll close public comment, bring it back. We have consideration items this evening that begin with our minutes of February 3rd. Are there any questions from the committee on the minutes of February 3rd? Okay, any public comment on those minutes? Seeing no hands, we'll bring it back for action.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote on that, please, Erica?
For Ultra, Vice President Tipton,
Yes.
Vice President Cromines,
Yes.
and President Lopez.
Yes. Okay, next is our 2022 January claims and financial reports. We'll go over to Ray for a brief presentation.
And I apologize because you guys basically get to hear me talk all meeting, so hopefully the sound of my voice isn't too bad. Okay, claims and financials. At the end of January, we are at $15 million revenue, 64.5%. Percentage-wise, that's actually slightly ahead of where we were this time last year. This time last year, we were at 64.3%. And total revenues up about 730,000, mostly due to the increases we have to AB 939 and some solid waste increases, as most other things are actually trending slightly down. Expenditures, everything is in line at the moment. I do have one line item that I'm concerned about, but I will keep an eye on it. Otherwise, we are about 55% spent, slightly ahead of where we were, actually slightly lower than we were this time last year. We were at 57% spent last year. So everything's trending. Like I said, just one or two line items we're keeping an eye on. But as of right now, I think everything should be fine for the rest of the year. And we don't look at that one. Those are just CIPs and post-closure, Rosie, but thank you. Unless there's any specific questions.
Questions from members of the EC? Okay.
Nope.
Take it out for public comment. And bring it back for any additional questions or comments from the committee or action.
Motion to approve.
And I'll second.
Roll call vote, please, Erica.
Ultra, Vice President Tipton,
Yes.
Vice President Cromines,
Yes.
and President Lopez.
Yes, motion carries. We'll jump into item 3, which is the revenue bonds results, and we'll kick that over to Ray.
And I'll wait on the third S. Okay, next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned briefly during the board meeting, we were able to finalize the bond issue. Just wanted to kind of go over some of the results. So these are serial bonds. And the short description is that there are essentially 9 different loans with different maturity levels. So the earlier loan with the principal being paid on August 1st, as shown on the list. The overall loan based on our payment schedule is 2.036%. So that's a huge savings because our old bonds were at 5.5%. Total principal amount of 25.6 million. Next slide. So just to go over the comparisons, we were paying 3,135,000, and it was scheduled to reduce when we paid off one of the bonds. I'm going through 3132. As the direction of the board, we maintain level payments of 3.15 million. Minimal savings in the short run, but we keep those same payments throughout in order to finish paying these bonds off a year earlier at a overall savings of interest and principal payments of 1.6 million. Next slide. And just for reference, this is the actual debt service schedule. Principal payments are due on August 1st, and then we pay interest twice a year on August 1st and February 1st. Actually, well, technically it's due about a week before, but that's when they get recorded. Total payments of interest and principal of 28 million. It's a very brief summary, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions from the committee?
That was my applause.
$1.6 million savings. That's the important part to remember.
Not bad. Let's take that out to the public for comment. Ask folks to use a raise hand function. Seeing no hands, we'll close public comment, bring it back. And again, action here is to move forward to the board for recommendation, with a recommendation for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Erica.
Alternate Vice President Tipton,
Yes.
Vice President Cromines,
Yes.
and President Lopez.
Yes. We'll now move forward to item 4, resolution approving the disposal and service fees for July 1, 2022. And that'll be Act 3 in the Ray Hendricks Show.
Okay, next slide. So just a quick summary. We did commit to lowering the solid waste tipping fee from $68.50 to $64.75. And with that, we're lowering C&D and clean fill dirt to the same rate, as we don't want diversion programs to be more expensive than solid waste, as it kind of defeats the impact of trying to divert. Biosolids are no longer ADC, so that's rates go into the solid waste rate as going to the landfill. And as the green waste, all the organics programs are increasing to $57 a ton. As I mentioned in the previous presentations, our actual cost at the estimated tons is about $60, but we're expecting that there will be some savings once the construction of the facility is done, and we see some more economy of scale. So we're hopeful that that $57 will hold in the long run, but we'll address that about a year after that new contract takes in and figure out what the actual cost needs to be at that point in time. But this will fund our projects going forward. Next slide. So the AB 939, these get reallocated every year. So we were looking at there was a $100,000 increase for programs that were approved in mid-year, and another $73,000 in incremental costs. So total increase of $173,000 allocated as shown on the screen. So that being said, this would fund our budget as presented, assuming that we do get the termination of the Republic Green Waste contract. And that's it for the rate hearing. unless there's any questions. This is scheduled for a March rate hearing at this point.
Any questions from the EC?
No, sir.
So Ray, that the last page that's up in front of us, it says rate changes. But how are we,
You know what? You're right, and I will probably have to clean up that because the AB 939 is not necessarily a flat rate change. It's increasing to 173,000, but I can do a better job of showing the differences between the two. And if you bear with me, I may actually have it here somewhere.
and then within that, I'm still a bit confused as to, I mean, this is a rate hearing, this is, and this slide is talking about rate changes, but what are the rate changes?
Well, the actual rate change is the AB 939 increasing $173,000. So it was going from 3,460,000 to 3,633,000, and I'm showing the allocation in front of you. But as mentioned, when we do the actual rate hearing, I could do a better job of showing the difference per agency of what those changes are.
Oh, okay, because normally you'll have a slide that will have at full blown, it'll be the impact based on different size cams for the ratepayers in the different jurisdictions.
And I didn't put that even in the budget difference. And you're right, I normally do that. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the information from the city of Salinas to do the full rate impact. Actually, go to the next slide. Rosie, did I leave it blank? I did leave it blank. The city of Salinas didn't have a rate package that I could work off of, so I wasn't able to calculate that for everyone. But I can't say that the impact for the other agencies were a decrease of 5 cents for Tri-Cities, 2 cents for King Cities, and 4 cents for the county. So because the tipping fees going down, the rate impacts were decreases for our agencies other than Republic, which I couldn't calculate. And then for the 1 yard, the Tri-Cities was an increase of $1.34, and that's mainly because the organics goes to the franchise fees, and decreases of 18 cents and 9 cents for King City. But I will bring that slide. I will include that slide when I do the full rate hearing.
Okay.
But I was hoping to get information from Republic to finish that up, but because they did a contract renewal, they didn't have a rate package that I could use to try to calculate those changes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And Salinas will be a little bit different. The other ones are going to benefit from the reduction in the tipping fee. And then a small modest increase in the 939 fee. So you can see it's almost no increase, but on Salinas's side, we'll need to know what the impact is of them equalizing the green waste rate, which is required under the franchise agreement for 2022. And I don't believe that that's been done yet. So the Salinas adjustment will be likely be upwards because of that one-time adjustment.
But I will include that slide at the board meeting. I have some of the calculations. I was hoping to, because I didn't have them all, I didn't want to show partial information, but I will include what I do have before the board meeting.
Okay, let's turn and see if we have any public comment on this item. Ask folks to use a raise hand function. *9 via landline or cell phone. Seeing no hands, we'll bring it back for action. The requested action is to forward this to the full board, recommending approval.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
we've got a motion and a second, and we'll ask for a roll call vote.
Alternate Vice President Tipton,
Yes.
Vice President Cromines,
Yes.
and President Lopez.
Yes, motion carries. For his fourth and final act, we're going to go to Ray for a resolution approving the operating budget of fiscal year 22-23.
Yeah, by my clock, I'm on presentation 4 and about 15 minutes into it. So it's going to be a really short EC meeting, especially since you've seen all this information before. So budget assumptions have a new composting operator effective July 1, 2022. Equalization of organics rates for all member agencies, as I mentioned, we're still waiting for the termination letter from Republic on that green waste contract. And closure of Sun Street, the budget assumes closure of Sun Street by July 1, with the authority relocating AB 939 programs to Madison Lane, and beginning transfer of solid waste material from Madison Lane to Johnson. And for tonnage calculations, we're assuming a reduction of the Sun Street self-haul tonnage by roughly 50%. And hopefully that holds. Next slide. So proposed budget is 23.5 million in revenue, increase of 243,000 in operating revenues, and expenditures, including CIP, increasing by roughly 135,000. Well, by 135,000, leaving a budgeted surplus of just under 15,000. Next slide. So the revenue changes are Madison Lane hauling fees. Our estimated tonnage based on a contract amount would be $2.1 million in revenue. The equalization of green waste rates, as well as the increase from $50 to $57 per ton, with a slight tonnage reduction from the self-haul at Sun Street, would increase our revenues for organics by 550,000. AB 939 fee increase of 173,000. Transportation surcharges, that's us shutting down Sun Street. No, we're no longer hauling the surcharge through ours, reducing 1.2 million. Solid waste rate decrease, along with a slight tonnage decrease, will reduce our solid waste tipping fees by 850,000. Other tonnage reductions due to shutting down Sun Street will reduce our revenues by 450,000. And then other ancillary revenues reducing our revenues by 67,000. So in total, the net effect of all that is increasing revenues by 243,000. Next slide. So the operating budget increases, Johnson Canyon operations, environmental control. So that's fuel, requirements of maintaining the landfill per regulatory agencies. So those costs are going up by 210,000. Payroll is going to increase by 136,000. Insurance 110,000. The organics program, the total expenditures is increasing by 56,000. So that's the higher cost, but a lower estimated tonnage at this point in time. The net effect of closing down Sun Street and taking over and moving our operations to Madison Lane, plus beginning to haul for Republic, is a net savings of 450,000, and all other increases are increasing 18,000. So the total operating budget is increasing by 80,000. Staffing allocations are going to be reduced by 3. So that's the closure of Sun Street. And as I've mentioned previously, these are all either currently vacant, so the scale house cashier is currently vacant, and the 2 heavy equipment operator leads have accepted currently vacant positions. So the allocation is reducing by 3, but we are maintaining all of our current employees. Will be still employed beginning July 1. Next slide. So debt services is just the summary of where we are. So first year of the 2022 bonds, $3.115 million. Next slide. And our CIP closure budget, so equipment replacements going up by 30,000. So that's just the estimate of what we're going to be setting aside for a Madison Lane fleet. Diversion programs are being reduced by 50,000. That's mainly the organics. Well, that is the organics program that we're setting aside a little less money, as the contractor is responsible for some of that. Going forward, landfill improvement is increasing by 75,000, and that's mostly the partial closure that we're working on. We're going to set aside 100,000 a year until we finish the first 2 phases. All in all, and then the reduction in tonnage reduces our estimated set aside by 5,000. So our total net CIP is increasing by 50,000. Next slide. New slide. So just for reference, we are estimating 209,000 going forward. Tipping fees reducing to 64.50, and we are increasing AB 939 by the equivalent of about $1.50 a ton going forward until AB 939 is fully funded, leaving our debt coverage roughly at about 189% for the foreseeable future. Next slide. So the surplus pays for a capital plan of just under 2.8 million. We do try to set aside money evenly, and we have no capital changes in the next few years. So just continual set aside for cell construction, equipment replacement, road improvement, continual landfill improvements, and a small amount for the Holland Road transfer station and the diversion programs. Next slide. So budgeted surplus of between 5,000 and 15,000 over the next few years. And assuming that we get a termination of contract for the organics program, the tipping fees from the rate hearing should cover the budget for next year. So that is my very brief budget presentation. And I know I went through that quick, but most of you have seen this. This is your 5th time seeing it. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ray. We'll kick it over to Christy.
Ray, I just want to go back to your budget assumptions, your first page, and just ask that you either add or at least say in your presentation that the decrease, the reduction in self-haul tonnage is a temporary. I think that that's important for.
We're hoping is temporary, but yes, I will add something.
And so I think that, that to put an optimistic spin on it, I guess, is my, is as you're talking about it, when you did it to it, because you've done it so many times, you're now reading through it very as a matter of factly, which is exactly the way, an accountant should do it. But
well, it's just the way I do everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. But this first page, I think, just to be a little more optimistic at, when you get to that is hoping a temporary reduction in self-haul tonnage of 50%.
Okay. I can most certainly try to put a little more positive spin on that.
Yeah, because there's some very strong feelings, especially within the city of Salinas, that that we're going to do a great job, and that this is not going to, and it's not just for solid waste authority's benefit, but that we're going to be able to get everyone to take their trash out to Madison Lane.
And I understand that, and I'm hopeful that my 50% is conservative and that it's not even that bad. But unfortunately, I have to take some past experience. And I know when we closed Crazy Horse, it took several years for that tonnage to come back into the system. So.
Yeah, and I think we're looking at, it's going to be a couple years at least, but. Yeah. Just to put a little bit of an optimistic spin on it, if you could.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go over to Rob.
I have a different question, but I actually want to tag on because Christy, that's a really good point. And I'd agree with that, like before reduction, either putting temporary or short term. But the other thing is, and this is also where people read some of these things as facts, even though it says assumptions up there. But we may also, after that 50%, in parentheses, put estimated or put won't know until, something along the lines of won't know until it happens. But
approximate,
something like that, because that's a really good point. But my question was going to be on the debt coverage ratio. with the issuance of these new bonds, did our debt coverage ratio requirement change?
No,
And either way, what is, I've forgotten what our requirement is.
it's 115%. We're well above our debt coverage ratio. And a big reason for that is because we've gotten to the point where we are setting aside capital on a flat basis, and then setting aside capital for the landfill. We have that doesn't really count as an operating expenditure.
Right, okay.
So,
Sorry,
but yeah,
did you say
we're
115 or 150?
1.5.
Okay. Got it.
115, yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other hands up at this point, we'll take it out to the public. Ask folks to use the raise hand function *9 in order to be recognized. Seeing no hands, we'll bring it back and look for a motion on item number 5.
Motion to move this forward to the board.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
alternate Vice President Tipton,
Aye.
Vice President Cromings,
Yes.
and President Lopez.
Aye. Motion carries. And with that, we are at future agenda items. Patrick?
I get to speak finally. So typical March. Obviously, we're going to be taking up the budget as requested by the board. I'll be providing another full update on the relocation project, and hopefully have some additional news going forward. And then just a number of typical items coming forward. So nothing real exciting in the March meeting outside of the budget. And hopefully our contract completion with Atlas, that's going much slower than we anticipated, but we are trying very hard with legal counsel's assistance to work through some of the technical issues, legal issues with the contract. So we're hopeful that'll come back as well at the March meeting. And then, of course, we'll have continuing discussions around MOU negotiations and our magical search for long-term office space. So with that, if there's anything the board would like, or the executive committee would like to add to the agenda or move around or alter, now's a good time, or you can reach out to Eric and I over the next week and let us know if there's anything additional you'd like to see brought forward.
Any members of the EC with recommendations, questions, or suggestions? Seeing no hands, we'll take it up to the public, see if there's anything the public would like to see on a future agenda. Seeing no hands up, we'll bring it back. We don't need an action on that item. At this time, we have reached the closed session portion of our agenda, which consists of 2 items pursuant to Government Code Section 5495 6.8 to confer with legal counsel and real property negotiators, GM CAO Patrick Matthews, Assistant GM Ops Manager Cesar Zuniga, Finance and Admin Manager Ray Hendricks, and General Counsel Roy Santos concerning the possible terms and conditions of acquisition, lease, exchange, or sale of multiple APNs and addresses. And 8, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, to provide instruction to General Manager CAO Patrick Matthews, General Counsel Roy Santos, and Labor Counsel Colin Tanner to negotiate salaries and benefits of non-management administration unit, operations and engineering unit, and at-will management employees. Now would be the appropriate time if there's a member of the public who wishes to make a public comment on either of these 2 closed session items. We do ask that you use the raise hand functions or *9 via landline in order to be recognized. Seeing no hands going up, we will close the public comment of our closed session and go ahead and recess to closed session. Do we have a time estimate for this, Patrick?
Less than a half hour, I hope.
Okay, so we'll anticipate being back just shy of 5 o'clock, just for the public's general notice. We'll see you all in closed session and we will be back. Thank you all.
Thank you. So Roy, I don't know if you see my background. This is in honor of you.
I love it. Are those cherry trees?
No, that's last month's almond bloom.
Oh, nice.
Almonds.
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 Almonds and pecans.
Delicious.
They're almonds until they come off the tree. Almonds after they come off the tree. They're almonds when they're on the tree. Because to get them off the tree, you have to shake the L out of them.
Dad jokes. Gotta love it.
That's an almond grower joke. Sorry, was mine.
All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene here in open session. I'm going to turn to council to see if there's anything to report out of closed session.
Nothing to report out at this time, Mr. President.
All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
I am so gonna tell that joke to my kids when I get home. I'll report back.
I might too, Rob. I might too.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.